So how was the last year for you? When you look back over the last year, many found it really tough. We just look at the global instability that's going on, wars and different things around the world. It means many people are quite fearful of the future and they hold back on spending on their properties and spending in their businesses. And this massively affects the construction industry. And then two, we've had economic instability too, haven't we? We've seen interest rate rises and inflation rises. So that means your materials are getting more expensive, your margins are getting squeezed, and that can be really tough on construction too. So how have you found it? More importantly, not just how did you find last year, but how are you feeling about next year? Are you highly optimistic that it's going to be your best year ever? Or are you really worried that maybe it could be more of the same or you could end up declining in business? Well, I want to make sure that next year is your best year because we can control our own environment and what we do in our own business. And many businesses do thrive even amongst difficult economic times. And I want to make sure your business thrives as we go through this. But there are a few steps that we need to take in order to make that happen. And one thing that we really don't want to accept is if we've had a tough year, maybe we've had a tough year for multiple years, we've had, this year's been tough, and then when we go back, we had COVID and things like that. So maybe you're looking back and you're thinking, wow, the last 3, 4, 5 years, they've all been tough. And I haven't actually grown in my business. In fact, it feels like I'm going backwards. Well, if that's the case, I really want to make sure that next year is your best year ever. And we really need to be determined, and you need to be determined in your mindset that you're not going to accept what happened in the past and you are going to make changes. If we're noticing that things aren't working for us and we're not progressing, we have to make changes in order to make sure next year is much better. So what this video is about is what do we need to do in order to ensure our next year is really strong? Well, one thing I do every year in my businesses, and this is really pivotal, is I have an annual review. I annually review how did I get on and what do I want to change and what do I want next year to look like. And part of this annual review involves 3 things. I'll just share my screen. We want to do these 3 things in this review to make sure next year is one of our best ever. Now, one of the first things we have to do is probe. Probe means we need to get deep and really understand what has gone on in our business over the last year. And sometimes probing is a little bit painful because we're looking at what worked and most importantly, what didn't work. And we want to do this across all areas of our business. So let's look at our marketing, for example. Did we bring in enough leads into the company? Were we able to have a high conversion rate when we were trying to sell? Was our marketing funnel working? Was it our Facebook ads or our Google ads or whatever we were doing for our marketing actually working? Were we getting return on investment for that? Were we working for the right type of clients? Were we keeping our clients happy? Did we deliver on time and on budget? So you start to get the point. We really need to analyze every area of the business and probe really hard to work out how we got on with that. Now, one thing that I do to really help me probe every year in all my businesses is I use a little bit of a heat map. And in this heat map, I analyze the 5 areas of business that I always talk about. That's plan, attract, convert, deliver, and scale. And across each of these areas, what you really want to do is look at how did I get on this year in that particular area. So say, for example, we start with plan. Did you come up with a real robust plan for last year on how it was going to go? So you might be able to say, yeah, my plan was very strong. I had a really strong plan there over last year and we stuck to that plan. Then maybe look at attract and think, how was my marketing strategy? Were we bringing clients on demand? Was our marketing funnel working well or was it a little bit weak? I might look at that and think, actually, we had a really poor marketing strategy. We only relied on word of mouth, so yeah, there was no marketing strategy at all. We look at conversion. How did we convert? Were we having a high conversion rate, winning a lot of the projects that we were pricing? You might say, yeah, I'm brilliant at that. I'm master. Then we look at delivery. Did we deliver on time and on budget with our projects? You might think, actually, delivery is really poor. I've never had so many negative reviews. We went over time and I lost a lot of money. So actually, delivery was very weak for us. And then think about scale. How are you getting on with finding and attracting top staff? Are you increasing your management staff in the office? How's that going? Are you retaining people? Are you training people? Things like that. So look at the scale side and the HR and you might think, do you know what? We didn't really scale. We didn't grow the business. We didn't bring any new people on. So that was pretty lame too. And then you just want to mark that up. Have a look at how you got on and give it a little bit of a mark. And there's your heat map, something nice and simple to look at. And the good thing about a heat map is what it does is when you're probing and you're looking into this, you get an instant snapshot of how you get on. So what worked and what didn't. And you can look at that and think, yeah, we were really strong in that area and we were not in that area. Now, once you've done your heat map, what I would really suggest is those areas that you were pretty poor at. So in this instance, we were pretty lame at our attraction and our marketing, and we were pretty lame at scaling. I would be diving into that the most. And that's where we need to probe the most and think, why were we so poor in those areas? What needs to change for next year? Because if you don't know what's going wrong, you're not going to be able to make the changes needed to ensure it doesn't happen for the next year. So that's number one, the first P, probe. The second P that we've really got to do is predict. We've got to predict how we want our next year to go. And prediction is so important, and some people dismiss this and they say, well, what's the point of predicting? It's just a prediction. Is there any value to it? But setting goals, and most importantly, we're going to show you it's not just about setting goals. We'll show you what the third key is with those goals. But setting goals is the foundation of where it starts. Every year, I set goals of where I want my businesses to be. I do a vision board of how I want my life to look. And I'm amazed at how close I get to hitting those goals every year, without fail, and so do all my clients. When we set those goals, your mind is just completely focused on hitting those targets. So it's really important for you now to predict how you want the next year to go. What's going to be different? How is your marketing strategy going to change? How big are you going to be as a business? So write all of this down across all those areas again and predict how you want it to look. How do you want it to look? Unless you write that down and put it pen to paper, then how's anyone else in the business going to know what you're actually after? So the second P is predict, and that's crucial. The third P out of all of this is plan. And this is probably, I would say, the most important out of the lot. You can look back in your rearview mirror and probe and see how things went. You can predict how you want things to go, and some people will say that's just dreaming. But unless you have a concrete plan of how you're going to break it down and get there, then it's a little bit pointless, isn't it? You really need to understand what you're going to do differently and how you're going to make it this time. And when I'm planning, I use a little bit of a roadmap for our clients. We have our developed Mastermind roadmap, and we know exactly what needs to be done at different points of the business as we're growing a business from 500K to 5 mil. And we know exactly what has to happen in that plan in order for you to hit that. And there's no point in this plan going for some really advanced strategies if you haven't mastered some of the basics. So when you're planning, make sure you're getting the fundamentals in place as you start to plan. And the second part of planning is setting yourself KPIs, key performance indicators, so you actually know what you're going for. So say, for example, your KPI was, right, turnover-wise, we want to hit, let's say every month we want to hit 100K. That means for my sales, I need to be hitting 150K minimum of sales per month, because obviously you don't want to get just 100, obviously you constantly be running out of work. You might say, I want my gross profit margin to be 30% and I want my net profit margin to be 15% next year. That's great. You've got some KPIs. You've started to put a prediction in place, but now you need to plan, how is that actually going to happen? What needs to change? So you might say, right, in order for our turnover to be 100K, I need to take on an extra project. That means if I'm going to take on an extra project to what I'm used to, I need to look at my marketing, and maybe I need to do Google ads or whatever your marketing strategy is going to be. If you want your sales to increase, what are you going to do with that? How do you increase your sales? If you want your gross profit margin to increase, maybe you need to look at your material suppliers and negotiate better terms. Or maybe you need to find better subcontractors who are not charging you as much. So you get the point of how this works. Now, the last column here, this won't help you unless you're working with us, but we have a specific roadmap project that we looked at before, which normally goes along with one of these, that can help you actually deliver that and make sure you hit that target for the year. When you really want to make next year your best year ever, you really need to look at these three things. The 3 Ps: probe, predict, and plan. If you do that, you're much more likely to hit your targets for next year. So let's ensure next year is your best year ever. Do something differently and make sure you're moving forwards towards your goal. And if you want some help with that, we know exactly how to get your business to 5 million, because we're doing it all the time in our mastermind. So if you want some more help with that, make sure you reach out and we'll show you what to do.